What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you how you can qualify leads at scale using Make.com, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google Sheets. This automation essentially frees up a lot of time for me. I'm a business development rep and I'm in charge of our cold email campaigns. And a lot of time spent when you're doing cold emails is actually obtaining good qualified leads that you then email. You use databases like ZoomInfo, Apollo, other scrapers to extract leads from and then send emails to. One of the biggest problems with these email address providers and these contact providers is the lists that they provide you when you really narrow down a list of industries and companies you want to target. They don't provide you with exact qualified leads. For example, when I'm using ZoomInfo and I'm putting in these search parameters, adding these filters in to really narrow down this list of contacts, I'll have locations in the US, but still inside of this spreadsheet, all these contacts that it comes up with, you'll find companies that are based out of Russia, based out of the Middle East or Canada. Sometimes the industry's off. The job titles aren't always exact. So when you're actually putting together a list right here, you have to sift through all these contacts and search individual websites. As you can see here, Shanghai, China. I asked for US only. I mean, I guess they operate out of the US, but your company might not be able to work with this exact company. So what you need to do is you need to either read through their profile right here, and more oftentimes you're going to have to actually go to that company's website and spend about a minute or two going through that website and deciding whether or not, okay, yeah, we can work with this company and I will reach out to this person here. And what I would do before is I would say, okay, yep, this company's good. CFO, yep, this guy works. And I would spend all day long literally going through these giant lists. 1,300, that's on the low ends. Typically, it's closer to 5,000, and I would spend a whole 9 to 5 going through that single list, coming up with a list of qualified contacts. What this automation essentially does is remove that all and free up a ton of time. What we will do with the automation that I have in place right now is I actually still put together a list like this. You got to have a business email. We're targeting hotels and hospitality companies, lodging and resorts inside the US. Need a business email, and we want to target CFO and COOs. So what I do here is I just, select all, and then I export it. And what I do is I throw that spreadsheet into Google Sheets, that CSV file. I throw it into Google Sheets and I edit it down a little bit better. I make sure that the contacts or the job titles are all job titles we work with. I do a little bit of editing. It's not going to be completely raw from that download from ZoomInfo. Maybe I look at the country that they're in, make sure there's no India in here, no China. I won't do that right now for you, but just showing you how the process works. And the way we proceed from here is putting a code in the back end of Google Sheets. In extensions, you click on App Script. This is just a code that is put in the back end to basically make your Google Sheets more advanced and maybe be able to work with other apps. This is where you can leverage API abilities. So down below, I'm not going to scroll down so you aren't able to see what my API code is, but I have my make.com API code inserted down below here. I don't know how to code. I had ChatGPT come up with all of this. It took some trial and error. It took 5 to 10 different code insertions where I'm basically saying, hey, ChatGPT, this is exactly what I want. I want to search each row one by one. I want this to trigger every single minute. And after you have the code incorrectly and the trigger incorrectly, just ask ChatGPT how to do all this. It's not too complicated. Once you know it, you know it, but you don't need to know any code for this. ChatGPT is a phenomenal coder. Once you have this in the back end, anytime, or the way that I have it set up is anytime a row hasn't been searched yet and this status column is empty, my automation is going to trigger. So I already went through all these contacts here. As you can see, they've all been sent. This is all done through. It's all been searched. But if it hasn't been searched, this is empty. When one row has information filled and this is empty, it's going to go search that row. Okay, so now we're in make.com. So this webhook right here is set up with this app script in the back end of my Google Sheets. So these are my raw leads here. The automation triggers. I go and I search the row. Actually, this is a database of all the qualified companies I've already searched before. I'll show you what that looks like. The reason I do that is because I don't want to have to search a company's website over and over and over if I've already done it. So what I do is I store a database of all the companies I've already searched and whether or not they're qualified. So if the company name, the company URL exists in my database, then it'll actually go down this route where, okay, it exists. Is the company qualified or not? Okay, it's qualified. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to add them to the qualified leads list. If it's not qualified, then okay, we're going to do nothing, and that's it. We'll go to the next row once a minute has occurred. Okay, so that's why I keep a qualified database here, is because you're wasting operations and you're wasting API credit usage with Perplexity and ChatGPT to have to search these companies over and over again. As you can see, I have a lot of companies that have been searched, thousands. These are all US companies that I've searched, 7,000 companies. And there's plenty more to search. But this database is helpful with keeping my make.com credits under control and not spending too much money on the API usage side with my AI. So an empty row exists. It searches the database. Has that company been qualified yet? Yes, it's been qualified. Then we'll go see if that company is qualified or not qualified. Okay. And if the company doesn't exist in my qualification history spreadsheet, then is when we actually have AI search the website in Perplexity. We categorize the industry with ChatGPT. The reason I do that is because the company that I'm doing this for, the company that I work for, we help companies save on their waste and recycling. And we work with medical companies and solid waste companies. And depending on whether or not it's medical or solid waste, we have to qualify them differently just because we don't operate in certain locations with solid waste that we do medical waste, and the industries are a little different. So by categorizing it, I can put it down different pathways to then say, okay, it's a surgery center, that's medical waste, and we work with medical waste companies that operate here, here, and here. They must have X amount of locations, blah, 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 whatever the qualification parameters are. It says qualified or not qualified based on the inputs that I insert in here. Let me not get ahead of myself here. Let's go back to the Perplexity here. So we search a row of here, of a raw leads row. Okay, we got Jill, who works for Three Angels Broadcasting Network at this website. Doesn't sound qualified, but we don't need to do that work. We'll let AI do it for us. The company doesn't exist in the qualification history sheet. Okay, Perplexity, go and do research about this company. Figure out, the main things about them. Research the website and online presence of the company name that's being pulled from the spreadsheet at their main URL here, company website. Focus only on publicly available and factual information from their website or credible business directories. Return a short structured summary, what the company does, how many physical locations they operate, where its headquarters are located, where its operational locations are located. You can customize this however you want. It really depends on what service you're selling or what business you're doing this for, because you're going to want different information about the company that you're doing research about or having AI do research for you about, because the information that you want to pull from the website is going to help define whether or not they're qualified and your specific company can work with them. So AI or Perplexity goes in and searches it. Let me pull up a past run. Looks like I can't see any. How about I just go fake one here? Let's go to ZoomInfo, Coast Hotels. Let's just extract one page. Export as a CSV. So this is how this would work. Excel, it's going to spit out a CSV maybe or a XSLV. Okay, so yeah, CSV. We'll just throw this right. I'll edit the list because I have certain columns that are pretty defined and set up that I do every single time. So I usually get rid of this row, get rid of there. The reason I do this is because my coding in the back end of the Google Sheets has very defined columns that I need set up, so it needs to be consistent every single time. Email domain. Obviously, you can do this however you want, but this is just how I do it. Where's the company name? Oh, yeah, back there. Here. All right. There we go. So I think this is correct. I have another sheet in my spreadsheet that tells me exactly what it needs to be before I put it in. Hotels example. Okay, now let's go back to the spreadsheet. I'm actually just gonna erase all this because I've already searched all of it. We'll just delete that. Here's my format that I set up with every time. So we will import it in here before we copy and paste it over because it's going to trigger as soon as a row is empty. So we want to make sure that the rows are set up correctly or it's going to fail. I need a charger going. All right, this doesn't want to work. All right, we're just going to copy and paste it in. Okay. So I didn't do the LinkedIn profile. So we got to go back. I can just, I don't need it. Oh, shoot, one more. I didn't do the HQ either. It's not a big deal. Company streets, go there. Range, I didn't do employees either. It doesn't matter. All right, so we have this list. It's in the correct format. Now we'll go ahead and bring this all over since it's in the correct format. And I'll show you what this looks like when it triggers. Okay. Sent. See, immediately sent in. So the scenario just ran. Okay, so it went, it searched the website of that first row, and it spit out a summary of it. Hotel Capital is a privately held hotel investment and advisory company specializing in the acquisition, renovation, and management, blah, 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 blah. And 70 hotels, all this information, and ChatGPT. Can you categorize it based on that company summary? Can you categorize it into one of these industries, please? And if it's a medical waste industry, out of any of those types of companies I gave it, any of those industries, is it medical or is it a solid? I'll show you what the filter looks like. I set up one, and then if it's not any of these industries, it'll automatically go to the solid waste. So community health centers, dialysis and kidney health, outpatient clinics, surgical centers, any of those, it's going through medical waste. And I'm using the output of that ChatGPT. And I set up this ChatGPT so it only outputs that industry, nothing else, no explanation, no quotes, because it needs to be exactly those companies. I also have uncategorized too. Sometimes Perplexity can't search the website, and it actually doesn't know what they do, and it says I don't know anything about this company. Uncategorized will be the output, and it'll automatically go through this route because this is my fallback route. If it's none of the defined medical waste companies or industries, it'll automatically fall down the solid waste routes. And then each of these ChatGPTs is set up to then qualify medical companies and solid waste companies. So let's check it out. Based on the summary below, that's the Perplexity summary again. We use that twice. Once to categorize it, another to qualify it and decide whether or not this is a company that we can work with and we can send emails to. So output one of three options: qualified, not qualified, or needs review. And based on that output, it's going down one of these three routes here. Okay, so qualified, not qualified, it doesn't know. So unknown, that happens when Perplexity is like, we don't know anything about this company, or we can't search their website, anything like that. And that's what happened here. So we can see that needs review was the output of ChatGPT here. The industry categorization, hotels, and that's correct. That's the company we were just looking at, the Clover Hotel Group. So is it qualified, not qualified, unknown? I'll show you how I defined what a qualified company is. A company is qualified if it meets all the following criteria. And I basically put in produces solid or medical waste. We don't work with construction companies. Has physical locations in the United States and operates in at least one of the following regions. And these are all this is where we work with, and we don't work here. So I wanted to find that. And I put some other things in there as well. And so ChatGPT will then say, okay, yep, they're qualified, not qualified, or they need review. If it's not qualified, I add the qualification status to ICS qualification history. So I add the company down below at the bottom, and we should see a couple more pop up. I configured this incorrectly. I made some changes to it recently to basically check whether or not that email is a valid email. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. If it's not qualified, the qualification status is updated and nothing else happens. It doesn't get added to the qualified leads list. If it is qualified, we go and we verify the email with an HTTP request with NeverBounce. That's part of ZoomInfo. It's I guess a sister company, and you basically throw in emails and they say, yes, this is an email that you can send emails to, and they won't bounce. Sometimes the email providers like ZoomInfo or Apollo give you bad emails. They don't work there anymore, or they're catch-all, meaning that the emails will be taken in, but they're not necessarily working emails. So it's kind of a confusing thing, but this is something I just added into the automation. Before I didn't have this. So there's an error somewhere in here. Basically, HTTP call, I'm not going to get much into it. If it's valid, okay, we're adding it to the CSV qualified leads list. So I should have gotten rid of this list because this is a brand new list before I started running the new one I just threw in there. Valid. So these are the only two that have come in there so far from the new 25 I just put in there. So those companies are Qualified, CN Hotels, and Chula Vista Resorts. We'll be able to see these in here. Chula, CN, Qualified. So it was invalid. Qualification history is not updated. Let me go fix that. That was probably this route right here, if I had to guess. Qualification status, yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and refresh this table to get the headers correct. Yeah, so that's what's wrong. The date that I reviewed it on, I like to have the date. This is how I format the date, month, day, year. As you can see here, NeverBounce results, that's there, and then I gotta get the qualification status in there. So that is the result of this. So the result needs review. So you know this is the correct ChatGPT and not one of these because it's pulsing. Put that in there. Good. Save that. So it doesn't know if it's qualified. Those are the companies I actually have to go into and check. So it's blank here, or it would have said needs review right here, and then I would actually go in, check the company, 71 hotels. Where are those hotels? Where's their portfolio? All right, Philly, Florida, Missouri. All right, they're good. So I actually go in and I type this in, qualified. Automatically, the contact associated with this Clearview Hotel Capital is then updated. And then as you can see here, needs review. This company also needs to be checked. I won't do that now. But I believe that I have a webhook set up in another automation from an app script that I put into this specific spreadsheet. So, yep, this is another one. I'm not going to get into this, but basically this allows me to either add or remove contacts for the companies that need review. This company needs review. The contact was automatically added. Club Med was automatically added to the qualified leads list. So this guy right here, he was automatically added even though I didn't know if he was qualified. So the company's based out of Shanghai. They might have operations in the US. So yeah, this guy is out of Boise. So he could be qualified, but those leads are automatically added. If I go and I put unqualified, automatically removed from this list. I'll demonstrate that right now. Let's just say not qualified. Okay, so Club Med, oh, removed. gone. So I guess the Boise was a different company, but Club Med has just been removed. That's something I've set up with this, or not this one, but another app script in the back end of this spreadsheet. Okay, so qualified, it does it. The email gets verified, and then is it valid? Email, okay, it gets added to the CSV. If the email is not valid, I'm just gonna update the qualification status that this ChatGPT provided, and then the same thing on the other side. It's a medical waste company. We qualify it with our parameters inserted into this ChatGPT. It's qualified if all these things are true. Okay, is it unknown? Is it not qualified? Is it qualified? It's the exact same thing on this side. I know this looks a little messy. When you add these error handlers in, it gets a little messy because if I were to auto align this, it all goes diagonally. I'm not going to do that right now because it just messes it all up. I like it to be straight across. It's easier to view. I know it looks a little messy, but it works for me. These error handlers essentially, if ChatGPT errors out because it took too long to load or whatever, that happens every once in a while. This break basically says, okay, we'll wait 1 minute and then we're going to try that exact same prompt again with the exact data. So usually if you don't have these errors in, you just error and then it'll move on to the next row and you kind of lose that data and you waste operations because eventually you'll need to run that row again and you're wasting 1, 2, 3, 4 operations versus taking a break. You're using that previous data to then go run it again. And to have that set up, what you need to do is you need to allow storing of incomplete execution. So automatically this is turned off. You got to turn this on, and then you go ahead, click into this, right click, and add error handler. There's all these ones. I like the break. There's some use cases for the other ones, but I think break is usually good for most situations. But yeah, this automation allows me to save time and not have to sift through sheets of contacts that I have to qualify myself and search each individual website one by one to decide whether or not we can work with them. And the reason we qualify companies is because we don't want to send emails to companies that we actually don't work with, because you're going to find this might be hotels and resorts, but there could be consulting companies that work with hotels and resorts. We would never want to email those people. If we do send them a cold email about our service and it doesn't make sense for their company at all, they're going to report us to spam. They're going to block us or whatever, and that hurts our domain reputation and hurts our future emailing capabilities. So we want to make sure that we're only reaching out to companies that are qualified. And this automation is a great time saver. So if you like this sort of stuff and you learned a lot, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.